Okay, so Shreyas, we're live now.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey everyone. My name is
Yeah, I'll
Shreyas.
begin. Yeah, Shreyas, don't worry, I'll begin. Just 1 second. Give me 1 second. Good evening, everyone. I'm sure many of you are excitedly awaiting the hackathon, which starts at 9 p.m. Trust me, we do too. But before that, we have an amazing event planned for you guys, and I, Gurusahej, have the privilege to introduce you all to it. Okay, so before I begin, I would like all the participants, all the attendees, to follow us on all our social media handles, because for this session today, we'll be constantly having quizzes afterwards that you can attend, and there's going to be lots of prizes and goodies for those who win it. Okay, now I'll begin. As many of you guys know, Ethereum Foundation is the title sponsor for DevSpace 2021. We thank them for their contribution for making DevSpace possible. So for this session, we have Mr. Shreyas Hariharan to guide you on how you can decentralize the internet with Ethereum. Mr. Hariharan is the co-founder of Llama, which helps crypto communities manage their treasuries. He has actively worked in the fintech industry and has built extensive financial models for organizations like JP Morgan and Duke University. He has also written several well-received articles describing the intricacies of the crypto world. He's the founder of Community Honor Fund, which offers affordable personal loans and financial coaching to low-income clients in Charlottesville. In 2016, he founded Unsung People, which shares the stories of people who are making a positive but hidden impact on the community. We're ecstatic to have him with us today and hope that you guys learn about the impact that Ethereum will have on the future. Mr. Shreyas Hariharan, everyone.
Hey everyone, thank you, and I'll just share my screen and excited to have this talk today on decentralizing the internet. Let me know if you can see this. Can you see this on full screen?
Yeah, it's visible.
Great. Yeah, so today I'm going to walk over decentralizing the internet via crypto. I think there are 5 phases of decentralizing the internet. The first one is a digital store of value. The second one is decentralized finance. The third one is billion-dollar creators and communities, and a lot of things that you might have seen happening with NFTs. The fourth is on-chain reputation and identity, and some of the interesting implications from that. And the fifth is network states, which I think will emerge out of more governance of some of these open source protocols and larger communities. So the first phase that we've actually made a decent bit of progress on is a digital store of value. And the first cryptocurrency is, of course, Bitcoin, that has proven to have some store of value given one encryption to the game theory around a Bitcoin, and the fact that it's actually not been hacked, though it's survived over 10 years, and though other exchanges have been hacked, Bitcoin and Bitcoin's ledger has not been hacked, and the ledger probably till now is proven to be extremely reliable, which makes it again a useful store of value. But the other component of a useful store of value is just the fact that people believe it's a store of value, and as more individuals and institutions accept that Bitcoin is a store of value, it sort of memes that into existence. And you're starting to see, Tesla add Bitcoin to its balance sheet, more endowments and other institutions adding Bitcoin. I think eventually you'll have sovereign wealth funds and a few central banks add Bitcoin that would increase its legitimacy as a store of value. Ethereum is also an asset and a store of value, but Ethereum does much more. Ethereum is a smart contract platform, and you have thousands of decentralized applications being built on Ethereum, which a lot of what's built on Ethereum today is decentralized finance, which is actually a pretty exciting space. For example, Uniswap is a decentralized exchange that lets you trade any crypto asset for another crypto asset on Ethereum. And it implements something called an automated market maker model, which is different from a centralized order book. So you can actually get a price at every point for any crypto asset on Uniswap with a simple formula that they use, and it's actually worked, and they actually have provided liquidity and tradability for a long tail of assets, which is something crypto enables, because crypto enables the financialization of a lot of things, and to do that you need to actually be able to trade them and to do useful things with them. The second component of decentralized finance is borrowing and lending, and so protocols like Compound and Aave let you do this. So you can actually take assets that you've bought on Uniswap and then deposit them on Compound and Aave and actually earn yield on them. So you can, let's say, deposit Ether, earn yield on Ether, and maybe borrow DAI and pay some interest on doing that. And that unlocks another type of activity, I think, that is useful to have completely on chain, because this, prior to Ethereum, of course, like this was a behavior that was pretty hard to execute on chain. The third component is stablecoins. We've seen actually a lot of interesting experiments in stablecoins. Some of the most valuable stablecoins today in the Ethereum ecosystem are USDC and DAI. Both of which enable a lot of useful activity, including like payment of core contributors in various DAOs and other organizations in crypto. How MakerDAO works is it has a bunch of collateral in Ethereum, in assets that are in the Ethereum ecosystem, and using that collateral, you have DAI backed by much more collateral in the decentralized asset space. And they have an elaborate governance mechanism to make sure that you maintain the one-to-one peg of one DAI equals $1. And you've had, after MakerDAO, you've had many more experiments of what interesting stablecoins could look like. Here's, I think, probably one of the most interesting things happening today. Once you have the primitives of a store of value and some decentralized finance, over the last year, you've seen a bunch of interesting things that creators and communities have done in crypto, which is probably the most consumer-facing side of crypto, because most people are not lending or borrowing on Compound or Aave. So I'll start with what an NFT is. An NFT is a unique digital asset that can be tracked on a blockchain like Ethereum. And how this is different from another asset is that it is non-fungible. So, $1 bill is fungible because, like, my $1 bill is the same as yours. But a Mona Lisa painting is non-fungible because it is the Mona Lisa painting in France is unique. Even if I make a copy, it is not the same Mona Lisa painting. And so what gives it value is is sort of the story around it, plus the fact that it's unique and it's provably unique. And so a bunch of, if you think of all the creation that happens in the internet, people actually creating content and images on Instagram, and writing things on Twitter and making blog posts, and all the creation that happens in the internet, there's actually a lot of value today being captured by various platforms. And the monetization model predominantly has been selling ads to basically getting eyeballs and then monetizing by ads, which definitely has some pros. But one of the cons is that it doesn't give a lot of monetary value to the creators that actually are creating this value. And with NFTs, you can actually have creators directly monetize. So I actually did this. I sold an essay that I wrote on a platform called Zora, and someone bought it for $1,000. And there's probably no other parallel in the traditional world where I could have done that, because the person who bought the essay bought it because he thought it would be culturally significant, maybe, or he just wanted to support someone writing an essay. And he owns the rights. He owns the essay, though it's still universally accessible and anyone can access it. But every time he sells it to someone else, I get 15% of the future sales. So I think basically you'll have financialization of a lot of things that you thought were pretty weird to financialize, including memes and pictures and videos and TikToks and essays, and much better things like 3D things as our like VR worlds get built out. And so a lot of things can actually be tradable. And so if you think of the gaming world context, like people actually buy certain like digital goods in these games. But the problem is that these digital goods aren't transferable to other games. If you buy something in Fortnite, you can't move it to another game. But in the crypto world, anything you buy in one space can actually be moved. It's interoperable and tradable and usable in sort of the whole crypto ecosystem. So yeah, and when more things get financialized, you actually see investing take a pretty different form. So there's something I wrote an essay about called "Investing is Entertainment," and the idea is that as more things get financialized, especially things that are pretty cultural, then people will the act of investing is almost an act of consumption and entertainment. Of course, you want the monetary upside ideally, but someone who is buying a meme might just buy it for like the joke, and somehow like that joke, or someone can buy like a particular coin. There have been some crypto tokens that have been bought as as a joke. Like initially, Chainlink had a not really a great like value proposition, but then ultimately the community was so strong that it memed something of value into existence. And Chainlink is a decentralized Oracle network, and so you could have situations where something that it starts almost as a joke gets has the financial backing in the community to eventually like become something useful. And more and more of the internet will be ownable by individuals and other groups, collectives like DAOs, which so far has been pretty much controlled by platforms. And so it's a pretty interesting and exciting future where you have billion-dollar traders and billion-dollar communities. You've got some sense of that with Beeple, who is a digital artist who sold his work recently for $69 million. But that's just a taste of what's to come, I think, because if people starts a community, I assume that community could grow to a billion-dollar community, and you can actually have like a tokenized, if you own Beeple tokens, you get access to this group chat, and my guess is that there will be people willing to pay for that, and the value that was originally monetized in a very indirect way can now be pretty directly monetized. The next, the fourth phase of decentralizing the internet is what I think of as on-chain reputation. So anytime you create an Ethereum address, you already have some pseudonymous identity. So like you create an Ethereum address, you have 0xyz as your identity. And you can choose to not make it pseudonymous. Like you can have an Ethereum ENS domain name. So you can have like Shreyas.eth that's associated with my Ethereum address. But you could also just not do that. But anytime you have like a particular address, you do things with it, you actually build a reputation based on that on-chain history. So anytime I trade tokens on Uniswap, anytime I lend or borrow on Compound or Aave, anytime I do liquidity mining, anytime I mint an NFT, anytime I buy an NFT, anytime I vote on a governance proposal, I'm adding to this like history that's linked to my particular Ethereum address. And you could do a lot of interesting things with it, because as a founder of an early stage protocol, you can actually limit the early participants and users and investors to people who have a particular on-chain history that you think is reliable and trustworthy and maybe even sort of suitable for what you're building. So one example of this is a project called ArcX, which limited their initial users to basically a bunch of people that addresses that had done a certain on-chain activity, which is liquidity mining or a few other things before a certain date. And so by doing that, they actually let people who are initial participants as folks who have had some background in doing some liquidity mining and were crypto native to some extent. And this can go many more ways, right? Like this is just the start of benefits from one's on-chain reputation. Another example is Uniswap gave 400 uni tokens to anyone who traded on Uniswap. So that the value of that today is, I think like $12,000 or something. And so the value of like, participating productively in crypto networks will be a lot, because you'll actually get monetary benefits from it, and eventually social benefits as well. So the idea of an on-chain reputation is not sort of one single on-chain reputation. You're going to have, a reputation is subjective. So you're going to have people, different projects view a certain on-chain history differently. Like an NFT platform will view minting, will assign maybe a higher weight to minting an NFT versus, a DeFi protocol might assign a higher weight to a governance decision, voting on governance, things like that. And I think besides the economic benefits, one of the interesting things with this is the social benefits from an on-chain reputation. So imagine if you get invited to, a certain, group, or get introduced to certain people based on your on-chain history. An example of this is, people who own certain NFTs, like CryptoPunks, which is a pretty popular and one of the first NFTs that have really taken off. People who own CryptoPunks can basically be invited to a certain group, or be basically dropped certain tokens, because these are valuable people, because they own very sort of important, scarce, non-fungible token. And a lot of people want to get in front of these people. And so people will want to either introduce them to other communities, or people will want to use them as, tastemakers for future NFTs. So if I'm dropping an NFT, maybe I say like, I just give a free one to someone who owns a CryptoPunk. And by doing that, if that person, if that address like, likes it or shares it, or even the fact that he owns it sort of gives more value to this NFT. And as a result of that, I think you'll have what I'd call like monetary filter bubbles. So in the Web2 world, you've had social filter bubbles. So in social media, based on the your particular social graph, like who your friends are, who you follow, and sort of your algorithm and what content you've liked, you get a certain content feed. Like my content will be pretty different from even like close friends content, based on like our like social filter bubble. And in the Web3 world, I think you'll have certain like monetary filter bubbles. So based on the tokens I own and based on my on-chain history, I could actually live a pretty different life, or like have a lot of very different social and economic opportunities than like a best friend who maybe has a different on-chain history. And so they might just be different. They need not be better or worse, so they could be. In some cases, it just could mean that one's social feed preferences are different. One's like monetary feed preferences will be different. So people will own different tokens. There are thousands of tokens right now, and as you have more creators and communities, there'll be even more. And so people will own different tokens. People will engage on the blockchain in very different ways, and as a result, will live in pretty different worlds that might be unrecognizable if you didn't have that particular on-chain history. The fifth idea that I think is particularly interesting is this of network states. So Balaji Srinivasan had coined this term of network states, and the idea is that software is eating the world, and software is eating various components of traditional business and even finance, but it hasn't yet eaten up some components of traditional governance, and that it's starting to happen. And so you could actually have nation states that emerge from initially just emerge online, and that have a certain system and norms and a lot of things developed, and later could crowdsource physical territory, and can sort of evolve into physical states. And I think the way this starts is first getting the governance and treasury management right for protocols and DAOs. So right now there are a bunch of experiments on how to govern these protocols. So Uniswap, for example, has like $15 billion, I think, in their treasury, and it's an experiment to see how do you actually allocate that money. How do people vote on, what gets done with the Uniswap protocol, what doesn't get done? Who do you collaborate with? Do you do like mergers and acquisitions and, things like that? Decisions that are typically made by a few execs at companies now is made by, several hundred thousand token holders. And there's sort of a process of how to manage the token holder involvement with experts who are, actively looking into what to do with the protocol. And so you also have a new system of property rights emerge, and NFTs are the first version of this, which is NFTs are sort of internet native property rights. There's still a lot to figure out, but if you can prove that I own XYZ on the internet and you don't, it's actually a very valuable thing. It's if you think of what governments, one of the valuable things governments do is property rights. So if the Indian government's basically certifying that one person owns this property and the other person doesn't, and they have a property rights record, and they're sort of the ultimate arbiter of like who owns what. But if you think of internet native property rights that might emerge from some combination of encryption and coordination / game theory plus some governance system, that could be pretty valuable. And what you need to have as you have property rights is some way to resolve disputes, which is why you need some system of on-chain justice, which I think is, there are early experiments of this with something called Shreyas, which is like a decentralized court system, where if you have various disputes with your governance or other things, there's actually a system in Shreyas to resolve those disputes, even if you stay pseudonymous, which is pretty powerful. But it's still like very version 1 of this. And I think as we move on, you'll have, and as people build their reputations on chain, you'll have ways that, who do you trust, based on what you trust, how do you think about evidence on chain and things like that. The one thing that's pretty hard for justice on chain is intentions. So if you think of the traditional legal system, we think of, we really value the intentions of a certain person. So if someone has murdered someone else for, by mistake, that's viewed differently from if someone murdered someone because they intended to murder them, because they had some, prior history with that person, right? And so both those people are tried pretty differently based on their intent. So just because the outcome was the murder of the person, it is pretty different if you think about what the intentions were. And so I think in crypto networks, that's a pretty hard problem to solve, how to think about intentions. But I think we would probably find ways to find some balance between, having some justice on chain, plus figuring out how to think about these problems like intentions. And it's still very much an open question. Great. So yeah, I think to conclude, I find this space extremely exciting, and I think there's, we're pretty much like at a very early stages almost of changing a lot of systems, the way organizations are run, the way you think about open source, commons on the internet, the way we'll later think about nation states. And so it doesn't seem like this, but it's pretty much like how when Thomas Jefferson and others were founding America, or when Gandhi and Nehru were founding India. It doesn't resemble sort of people shaking hands and writing a constitution, but under the hood, that's what's happening. The difference is maybe like some people are pseudonymous. These people are writing code instead of drafting a document, and there are a lot of experiments. So a bunch of experiments in Ethereum right now are experiments in micro and macroeconomics, experiments in governance, experiments in distribution of value. So that there are a few experiments on how to implement, let's say, UBI on the blockchain. And so, yeah, there are multiple experiments like this, I think, that almost are running parallel to existing firms and nation states that I think are pretty interesting and exciting. So yeah, that's it. I had. If if you have questions or you want to follow my other thoughts on this, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at Hello Shreyas. And I also have a blog, helloshreyas.mirror.xyz, where I write more thoughts on these items. Thanks.
Okay, wonderful. I'm sure the chat was very lively throughout the session, Shreyas, and the participants really enjoyed your talk. They were actively engaging in discussions, and we're really glad to have you here at DevSpace. The session was really informative, and the participants must have learned a lot. So thank you so much. Thank you so much to the Ethereum Foundation for sponsoring DevSpace. They're the title sponsor that made DevSpace possible. Thank you so much. And to parting message to all the participants and the attendees, make sure to follow us on all our IG, Instagram, and social media handles. We'll be conducting quizzes based on this live stream session. So as the session which Mr. Shreyas Hariharan conducted, there will be a quiz on it on the Instagram page. So make sure to check that out. And yeah, that's all. Thank you so much for your time, Shreyas. Participants really loved it. And thank you so much for all the attendees. Please fill the attendance form when you leave. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shreyas.